Hi friends, in this video I'm going to talk about a topic that puts many developers in a kind of a dilemma, and I too was in such a dilemma when I started understanding the PHP language in much detail, that on a client project whether should I start with my own framework so that I can learn, provided the client provides me such kind of leisure of time, or should I use the existing frameworks? And actually, it does not matter whether you're working on a client project or you're working on your own. The frameworks are essential these days to deliver project and deploy it successfully to the client locations or the servers. So the question remains, should you create your own framework? Now, I have I used to have an opinion that yes, I could create framework, and yes, I can, given my sufficient level of knowledge on the topic. But in the end, after a lot of reading and thought process, I decided not to create a framework on my own, because there are a lot of reasons. The first one is, and the most primary and the most important, is there are plenty of frameworks already available. So if you have a look, the Cake PHP is a fantastic framework. Then Symfony is another good one, and the Laravel. So all these frameworks are already doing a lot of things. And if I just want to start a new framework, I would have to take enormous amount of effort and time to reach to their levels. I'm not saying that it cannot be done. Yes, it can be, but the amount of effort and the amount of experience that is needed in creating a framework in the times like these, when hacking is kind of a bigger threat, and you have to create secure frameworks so that people who are using your framework do not get hacked. It's kind of difficult. So I just will list down the things that one would need to do when they start with the framework coding. So let's say you start thinking of the language. First of all, you will need to have an excellent knowledge of PHP, and then you will have to have the knowledge of any SQL system, which is MySQL or uh, MS SQL or Oracle, anything. Okay, then you need to have a good grasp of HTTP related things. For example, the error codes and responses. Okay, then you will need to have the security aspect of PHP, and then you would need to know the configuration aspects of PHP on multiple servers. Then later on, when you get into actual framework, you will need to understand the bootstrapping concept, where you pass all the requests onto one controller, and from there it is dispatched to another, to the relevant controller. And then we need to understand the routing concept, and then handling of data, and then so I mean, I can write one or two more. Then you have to create a controller driven architecture if you are into MVC, or if you are into response requests like Symfony, then you will have to create that architecture, and you will have to handle all the data before you pass the data to the controller. Then you will have to provide a way for people to create their own custom controllers and models and views. That means sometimes in case of views, you will have to write your own view language. For example, there's something called as Twig in Symfony, because I have worked more on Symfony. So the Twig is a great language where you can create templates and use it to generate HTML. and then you will have to create the code in such a way that yeah, and the database interaction. And what else? Okay, I can think of so many things, and these are not small topics. These are topics that encompass a number of subtopics. So for example, let's say database interaction. So how many database are you going to support? How will you connect? Will you use another framework called as Doctrine in order to connect, or will you write your own? So the point is that when you think of excuse me, creating all your own framework, you will have to decide how you're going to take care of not only this but a multiple number of other things. So if you have a team, and if your job is to create a new framework and mm, make it popular so that a lot of people start using it, and if you think you have a competency, go ahead with that. But uh, in case you understand that what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of things in designing a framework, and it is quite difficult to design everything on your own, and it will take enormous amount of time. In that case, it's better to go stick with the existing framework. The time that you spend on designing and perfecting and testing the new framework could be spent on instead on the uh, client side in developing a very user friendly client application that you can sell. Like for example, Drupal is based on Symfony, so they have so it is as popular as any other PHP CMS, and they have used the Symfony rather than creating their own network. So uh, rather than creating their own framework, so you can go in that direction. Now the question is, okay, fine, but how will I understand what goes in the uh, architecture? How do they do things? I mean, that's a very nice thing to understand. And one more thing that you really need to know is OOPS concept, right to the detail, including the patterns and inheritance and all kind of things, and which is not easy without a good experience. And then because you are not only creating a software, you're creating a software that is to be used by others in creating their own software. So you can see there are like two levels of complexity here. And then you will have to support all the requests. Before that, you will have to find a community that accepts your framework, and after that you will have to find people who try your framework, and then finally you will have to support, and also you will have to create an ecosystem around it, which will have the, for example, plugins for social media or for sending messages or emails or kind of things, and you will have to integrate that into your framework. And for that again you will have to design some aspects like how people can integrate their own plugins into your system, because requirements are so varied that it is impossible for one framework to handle everything. So you can now understand how much complicated it is. Instead of actually designing your own framework, if you have resources then it's fine, but in case you do not have, is to the best thing is to do the best thing to do is to support the existing frameworks. So every framework would love changes, updates, bug fixing, documentation, and all other things uh, done by the community for them, because they know that it's a massive task, and they probably do not have so much resources other than committing the changes to their main code base. So you can contribute. So for example, if I want to contribute to the Symfony, I can go to the Symfony GitHub, and here if I find a bug or if I find some code changes that I can do, I can just clone or download the file, the complete repository, and there's a complete process for that. And in that process, I can make the changes and push it back to Symfony, saying that these changes are very well used, very well useful to the project, and they should be committed. In that scenario, I would be gaining the respect of the community because I am creating the changes and I am finding the bugs and I am solving them, or at least I am reporting them, and the application will grow better and better. So the better part would be to stick to take a framework and one or two frameworks that you find interesting, and to stick with them and to update them whenever you have time, and to create applications based on them. So in case, once again, your business is not about framework and you do not have time or capacity or competency to create a framework which looks a massive task, the best thing is go to an existing framework and learn it step by step, because every framework has fantastic documentation and they have videos to help you, and then there's a community both on the Stack Overflow and their own websites where you can contribute to whatever things you have found out, or if you found any bugs, or if you need any support. So I mean, I'm not discouraging anyone. If you are if you really want to develop the framework, and if you want to know how it works, and if you are ready to make mistakes, and if you're ready to support for a long time, please go ahead and do it. But to the general developer who is in a dilemma that whether they should create the framework by themselves or use an existing framework, my vote goes for using the existing framework and improving your application using that. So I hope I was able to shed some light, and please take it as my own personal opinion, and you have a full right to disagree with it, and that's okay with me. Not. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to my channel. I keep adding to the videos the things that I am learning, and I hope they would be good for you also.